Hey everyone, checking the price of Bitcoin too often is bad for your health, and I want to explain the reason why. So I've had for a while now, I had an app on my phone that would tell me every time the price of Bitcoin crossed a $1,000 threshold, which meant probably between 5 to 8 times a day, I was getting an alert that it was above 105. Now it was below 105. Now it was below 104, below 103. Nope, back above 104, back above 105. It's up to 106. Like, that was a typical day. And it occurred to me that the stress associated with watching the price of Bitcoin on that level of granularity is just not healthy. Which reminded me of a story I wanted to tell real quick that illustrates this better than anything else. So, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, it's been a while, or five or 10 years ago, something like that. I was meeting with a New York Times best-selling author to talk about doing a documentary on a book they had written. And anyway, the book is fantastic, and I wanted to do a documentary about the book, and ultimately we were successful, although it came out not as a documentary, but as a series of short films. But anyway, and actually, at the end of the day, Samuel L. Jackson ended up narrating the series of short films, so which was not my doing. It just the way it played out. That's what ended up happening by the doings of people other than me. But early in that process, before we got to the point, it was a sort of mini series of shorts, and before Samuel L. Jackson agreed to narrate, before all that happened, I was meeting with this New York Times best-selling author to talk about the book. Well, at the end of that meeting, because the guy loves books, there was a nearby Barnes & Noble, and he wanted to go there and just buy everybody that was in the meeting a book. And, just some book. It didn't even matter what book. Well, as we were at the Barnes & Noble, I asked him, I was like, when you go to a bookstore, because he just loves books, like he was just constantly like, bookstores were his favorite thing. I was like, when you go to a bookstore, do you check and see if they have your books? Because he's, at this point, at the time, he was the New York Times bestseller for one book. Now he is New York Times bestseller for two, it's either 2 or 3 books. Anyway, and he said no. He said when he goes to a bookstore, he does not check whether or not they carry his book. And he said the reason is because if they do, he doesn't feel any better because he thought they probably did anyway. But if they don't, he feels bad. So he said it's not worth it because the upside of finding out that they do carry his book is either minimal or zero, just psychologically, emotionally, just the way he feels finding out that, yep, there's his book, just doesn't do anything for him. But the downside of realizing they are not carrying his book is, emotionally negative. And so if there's no upside and there is downside, then there's no point in checking. Now, this dynamic plays out a lot, including with me with email. So sometimes I'll be, stressed out, I've got anxiety on 1,000 things I'm working on, whatever it is. And I think I'm going to check my email one last time before I do whatever it is, go to lunch with one of my kids or my wife or the family or something like that. But there's a problem. If I check my email and there's nothing stressful in it, then I may feel 5% or 10% better. But if I check my email and there's something negative in it, negative meaning just some problem I got to go solve, some issue I hadn't thought about before, then I feel like 50% worse. So anytime you have that combination, which is something that makes you feel better is only 5% better, but something that makes you feel worse is 50% worse, then you have 10 to 1 odds that you just shouldn't check email. It's not worth trying to find out that there's nothing that you're supposed to be dealing with, and therefore you feel 5% better. It's not worth it if the risk is there's something stressful waiting for you that you're going to have to deal with after lunch. That makes you feel 50% worse, and then you're thinking about it for all of lunch. So as a result of that dynamic, I adopted the principle, and last week I deleted the app on my phone that was giving me, almost hourly Bitcoin price updates. Now, I still have the price of Bitcoin on my watch, but that means I check the price when I intentionally look at my watch to check the price of Bitcoin, or when I open the Coinbase app on my phone. Then I can get the Bitcoin price anytime I want it, but at least I'm not getting alerts about when it changes because, again, it changes too much. Now, back in the early days, my guess is when this app initially came out, it was, $1,000 price change when Bitcoin's only $10,000 is a 10% change. So it's not alerting very often because there's not very many 10% changes. Well, fast forward, 5, 7 years, whatever it is, it's 10x higher. Or it's not even that, it's like 4 years, however long it's been, relatively short period of time. And here we are, it's 10 times as high, and at 106, 105,000 a coin, a 1% price change is triggering those alerts, which just is not worth it. And so when I find out that the price, I was going to apply the same logic here, I've discovered after, just paying attention to how I feel, that the upside of seeing that the price of Bitcoin is up is offset by a greater downside when seeing that the price is down. And when the price goes up and down 5, 7 times in a day, above or below a, certain specific $1,000 threshold, even if it means that the whole price in the day is barely moving by 1%, the fact that it is moving above 105, below 105, above 105, below 105, above 105, below 105, that's 6 updates for a price that could have moved less than 2%. So it's just not worth it. So if I had to put a number on it, I would say, looking at my phone and seeing that the price of Bitcoin is up, on a 1 to 10 scale, it's, I don't know. Well, let's put it this way. If it's a minor positive, but if I look at my phone and the price is down from whatever it is, it doesn't even matter, down from, we're in the 6 figures, like down is completely relative. But if I see that it's down, even if it's 1%, it's like the downside of the downside is greater than the upside of the upside. And therefore, I don't want to get 6 alerts a day, even if 3 are positive and 3 are negative, because the 3 negative alerts have a greater negative impact than the 3 positive alerts, even if at the end of the day, they all just cancel out and Bitcoin's right where it was. So in the long term, Bitcoin goes up and down on its way up. In the long term, it will be, and already is, and will continue to be, the best performing asset in the world. And it's better to just check the price of Bitcoin when you intend and intentionally check the price of Bitcoin, not when your phone is alerting you excessively about what it is. So I hope the story of the author and why he does not check to see if bookstores are carrying his book, I hope that's helpful, because it's been a helpful principle to me in understanding the nature of that emotional downsides are greater than emotional upsides, and whether it's checking your email one last time before you go to lunch and risking finding out something stressful or annoying in there, or whether it's, alerts on your phone reminding you that there might be something out there that you got to deal with, it's better to just turn off as much of that noise as possible. So for example, I do not have email alerts set up on my phone. If you email me, my phone doesn't do anything. There's no badge, app, icon. I don't have any way of knowing I have an unread email until I check my email. Now, I still check my email a bunch of times a day, but I check it on purpose when I have the mental space to actually do something with whatever's in there. And so I'm not getting alerts that there's an email that's suddenly stressful that I got to go deal with. I'm not getting alerts when I don't have time to actually deal with it and fix it. So it's a helpful principle. A lot of these similar principles are in the book. There's a book called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. He's a different author than the one I was referring to, but his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, has a lot of similar principles about, how to stay focused, how not to be distracted, and how to keep stuff from stressing you out. And I highly recommend it. That book is fantastic in every way. The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. So hopefully this principle is helpful. I'm always here to help you in any way I can. Thanks, everyone.